Getting into the Pokemon trading card game is easier than ever before, but with dozens of products, multiple formats, and thousands of cards to choose from, where do you start? If you're building on a budget, then there's always the trusty theme deck. With a bit of cash and a lot of creativity, you can build something bold and battle ready. You're watching Deck Boss. Hi everyone, and welcome to Deck Boss, the show where we take classic theme decks and give them a competitive tune-up. So this week, we're cracking open the Keldeo and Rayquaza Battle Arena decks. These are real blasts from the past, with both box legendaries hailing from the halcyon days of the black and white era. Both decks feature card lineups that performed well in a number of tournaments, including the World Championships where Rayquaza nabbed a top 8 spot, and in 2015 where Keldeo rode to first place alongside an Archie's Blastoise deck. These are well-built decks, with strong deck bosses, an array of staple cards, and very well-developed strategies. So let's crack these open and meet our first deck boss of the episode. Our first Battle Arena deck is built around Keldeo EX. This little rascal of a unicorn is a basic Pokemon with 170 HP, an ability, and 1 attack. It's also a multi-prizer, an EX in this particular case. Its ability, Rush In, allows you to move it from your bench to the active spot once per turn, and its only attack, Secret Sword, costs 3 colorless energy and does 50 damage base, plus 20 more for each water energy attached to Keldeo. As far as deck bosses go, Keldeo EX is a solid choice. Rush In makes Keldeo and its partners extremely mobile, it's a basic Pokemon which makes it quick to play, and Secret Sword allows for decent enough damage scaling by the standard of its day. But there are some drawbacks, especially for anyone looking to use this card in 2021. 170 HP is pretty meager as far as multi-prizers go. Secret Sword is a bit pricey, and you need to commit a lot of energy to make the damage scaling worth it by 2021 standards. Power creep is definitely a factor here, but Keldeo probably has just enough to make do. The real challenge here will be charging up Keldeo with enough water energy to punch holes in enemy multi-prizers, while not giving up an easy 2 prizes every time we try to swing in with it. Unlike most of our deck bosses, if Keldeo isn't OHKOing, it's probably not trading well, which is going to be a big hurdle to overcome and might mean that we need to look at it in a slightly different light. Now, let's jump back to the Battle Arena deck and see what it gives us to work with. The Keldeo Battle Arena deck contains some of the best water support available, as well as a number of competitive staples. First up is Blastoise, which allows you to accelerate as much water energy as you want to your Pokemon in any way you like. Milotic lets you recover 1 card from your discard pile to your hand when you evolve it, which is very good but can leave it a little useless on the bench afterward. Octillery has the fantastic Abyssal Hand ability that lets you draw cards until you have 5 in your hand once per turn. On to the trainers, we've got a solid lineup. Archie's Ace in the Hole is a game-breaking card that can only be played if it's the last card in your hand. It lets you put any water Pokemon from the discard pile onto your bench, and then you draw 5 cards. It's basically for setting up Blastoise immediately, point blank. Bianca, Professor Sycamore, and N make up your solid draw supporter package, and they all offer great utility in a number of situations alongside tepid options like Shauna and Professor Birch. Fisherman, Karen, and teammates form a really nice recovery package, either recurring resources or netting you new ones. Professor's Letter and Superior Energy Retrieval provide you with that flood of water energy whenever you might need it. Lysander is the OG boss's orders, giving you access to a solid Gust. Skyla allows you to fetch 1 trainer card from your deck, which can actually be extremely powerful in the right situation. Versus Seeker allows you to grab back any supporter from your discard pile, making it a staple in the expanded format. Your Pokeball package consists of Dive Ball and Ultra Ball, with one providing an Omni Search for water Pokemon, and the other providing a full-on Omni Search. Rough Seas is there to provide a bit of healing to all of your water and electric types. Rare Candy is basically here to cheat out Blastoise, so there's that. And Escape Rope provides a bit of mobility, which is always nice. As for the rest, don't worry about it. The Keldeo Battle Arena deck actually does a pretty good job of reinforcing its primary win condition. By hook or by crook, you can flood the field with water energy, allowing your attackers to punch big holes into the opponent. But it doesn't actually promote a glass cannon mentality, offering a lot of recursion and even some healing too. Overall, it's a really nice list, especially for the time that this came out. And now that we've got the basics, let's jump on over to PTCGO to see how we can make this deck work. Okay, so the nice thing about having such a well-built list to work with is that the general idea and skeleton can mostly remain in place. But to be fair, a lot has changed since Keldeo EX was dashing around worlds. Pokemon, for example, are a lot bigger, they hit harder, and even this speedy little pony can't necessarily keep up all the time. So with some brand new partners, Keldeo EX can still do pretty well, even if it actually ends up playing more of a supportive role than anything else. And I mean, not every deck boss needs to just be a big beat stick. So I've decided to partner our dashing little EX with the big blue beast, Lapras VMAX. Lapras has the bulk and the brawn to take on VMAXs and tag teams that are running around these days, and with its Gmax pump, it's basically using a super powered version of Secret Sword to take some ridiculous one-hit KOs. But in order to charge up Lapras, we need the help of Frostmoth. This allows us to accelerate water energy from our hand to our benched water Pokemon. This actually creates some synergy with Keldeo EX, because Keldeo's Rush In can allow you to move something to the bench, like Lapras VMAX for example, allowing us to pile on the water energy. You could also have a charged up Keldeo dash in to finish off something that Lapras has already dented, which is also a really nice strategy and slightly more prize efficient. Dedenne GX, Crobat V, and Tapu Lele GX all form a pretty solid support core, allowing us to draw into the supporters and the combo pieces that we need, usually when we need them. Onto the supporters, we've got a draw package consisting of Cynthia, N, and Professor's Research. Now, I personally tend to prefer Shuffle Draw to a hard Discard and Draw, but I kind of feel like the split is necessary to avoid clogging up the deck at times. Also, the 3 draw supporters are more effective at different times during the game, so having that flexibility from early to late game is always nice. Guzma provides some mobility, pairing particularly well with Keldeo and Frostmoth to ensure that we can drag out an opponent's Pokemon and then smash it with something like a fully charged Lapras VMAX, for example. Dive Ball and Ultra Ball carry over from the Battle Arena deck, accompanied by Level Ball, which is there just as an extra route to grabbing a Snom or a Frostmoth, which we really do need to get the deck rolling. Capacious Bucket allows us to search out water energy from the deck, usually letting us juice up our attackers a little bit more to take a critical KO. In this case, with the higher energy count, it's preferable to just keep pulling energies out of the deck rather than clogging up our hand with recovery options that we can't use right away, hence the count of Capacious Bucket over, well, any energy retrieval. Floatstone pairs perfectly with Keldeo, turning it into a fantastic pivot, allowing it to rush in, set up a Frostmoth to accelerate to the bench, and then Keldeo can retreat and bring a fully loaded Lapras VMAX into play. It also helps to get our key support Pokemon out of harm's way too, which is always nice. And of course we play a healthy count of water energy to make Gmax Pump and Secret Sword hit as hard as they can. It's a pretty straightforward deck. Charge things up with Frostmoth, smash, pivot, charge things up with Frostmoth, smash. But I kind of think simplicity is the best way to go, and I think pairing Keldeo with Lapras will allow for some pretty dynamic gameplay, and let the wee horsey EX still take on some of the titans stomping around 2021. Now let's jump on over to the expanded ladder to see how our little pony ends up faring. Okay, so that dynamic duo actually worked out pretty well. It is a pretty straightforward approach, and really, it was nice to have Keldeo act as an interesting, almost counterpoint to Lapras, offering a marginally better prize trade when the moment did present itself. But then it's also kind of sad to see Keldeo EX almost getting KO'd by a 1-prizer in 2021. A 2-prizer with only 170 HP just doesn't fly in our modern format. Despite it being a big basic with a really good ability, it's just been power crept so much. And I mean, outside of support Pokemon like Crobat V, Dedenne GX, and Tapu Lele GX, it's really hard to justify a 2-prizer that can be so easily picked off by enemy attackers. This is especially true in Keldeo's case because it needs a lot of water energy to do even decent damage by 2021 standards. I mean, for example, the Suicune out of Darkness Ablaze hits 130 for just 3 water energy, and that's a 1-prizer. But, you know, this also means risking a third of your deck's energy supply in either case, more so when you're using the squishy little pony, so it's definitely a ding against it. But again, that's all in the context of this being a very old card from a very different time in the game's history. Now, I still think Keldeo EX would be a great inclusion in any expanded water deck, but, you know, obviously not at the higher count like I played here. If you really frame it as just another support Pokemon that you run 1, maybe 2 of, then actually, yeah, its shortcomings by, again, modern standards can kind of be papered over. Now, we're obviously not done yet because we've still got the Jolly Green Dragon to deal with, so let's go and crack open the other Battle Arena deck and see if the dragon is still as vicious as it used to be. Our next Battle Arena deck is built around Rayquaza EX. This Soaring Sovereign of the Skies is a basic Pokemon with 170 HP and 2 attacks. And as a Pokemon EX, it's obviously a multi-prizer. Its first attack, Celestial Roar, costs 1 colorless energy and allows you to mill the top 3 cards of your deck, attaching any energy cards discarded to the Rayquaza EX. And yes, that includes special energy. Its second attack, Dragon Burst, costs 1 fire energy and 1 lightning energy, and it allows you to discard all basic fire energy or all basic lightning energy attached to Rayquaza, doing 60 damage for each energy discarded in that way. As far as deck bosses go, Rayquaza is kind of a risky pick. On the one hand, it's a big basic, which makes it quick to get into play. It has some built-in energy acceleration, and it can potentially do massive damage. But it's got some pretty severe drawbacks by 2021 standards, especially when compared to its recently revealed VMAX successor. It's only got 170 HP, which is just too squishy for a 2-prizer. It can potentially mill good cards in an attempt to charge itself up, and it requires a ton of energy to take out modern multi-prizers, even just the ones that get you 2 prizes. For Rayquaza to work, it needs to be built into a deck with easy access to energy acceleration and mobility. It needs to aggressively hunt down KOs or set itself up as a threatening presence on the bench while other attackers go in and deal most of the damage. Basically, if we can manage to round up the right partners, then yeah, this aging trio master might still put in good work. So let's jump back into the Battle Arena deck and see what it gives us to work with. The Rayquaza Battle Arena deck takes more of a split approach to its strategy, backing up Rayquaza with a number of powerful fire and lightning type attackers, and a really fantastic supporter and item lineup. Among the Pokemon cards available, the star of the show here is really Electric, which allows you to accelerate 1 lightning energy from the discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. It's basically a lightning type Malamar, and makes Rayquaza a lot more threatening when used alongside it. You've got a pretty diverse draw supporter package here with Bianca and Professor Sycamore, Shauna, and I guess Professor Birch if you're into coin flips. Karen and AZ are some fun techs to cripple Night March and Mad Party, or just to scoop up a damaged Pokemon. Skyla nets you any item card in a pinch, which has some really fantastic targets here in this particular deck. And of course, Lysander is your boss's orders, dragging something up to steal a key KO. Your Pokeball package consists of Level Ball and Ultra Ball, both of which are primarily used to get you access to your electric engine. Battle Compressor lets you dump energy into the discard pile, or other combo pieces like supporters when the proper recursion is available. Versus Seeker nabs you a supporter from the discard pile, offering unparalleled versatility, giving you access to a draw supporter when you need it, or a gust when the moment is right. Professor's Letter nets you some energy in a pinch, which is always nice. Sky Arrow Bridge gives all your basic Pokemon a reduced retreat cost, which can make evacuating a spent Rayquaza a lot easier. And Floatstone and Switch provide some much needed mobility when Sky Arrow Bridge is not in play. And as for the rest, don't worry about it. One thing I do have to say about the Rayquaza Battle Arena deck is that its trainer lineup is one of the best available in older sealed product, providing a number of excellent staple cards which continue to define the expanded format. Also, Rayquaza was such an absolute beast of a deck boss back in the day that creatures basically decided to reincarnate it as a rival to the mighty Eternatus VMAX. And now that we've got the basics, let's jump on over to PTCGO to see how we can make this deck work. Okay, so Rayquaza is a bit more straightforward of a build than Keldeo because it's all about smashing things with Rayquaza. If you've seen the recent reveal of Rayquaza VMAX from Evolving Skies, then you know that this archetype was thought good enough to revive and rival the giants of the Sword and Shield era. So yeah, big green dragon does big damage. That's basically the idea here. And really, that allows for an extremely no-frills approach to building the deck. Kicking things off, we have the literal engine of the deck in Electric. It's basically a Malamar for lightning energy, which lets you charge up your attackers. Now, I've elected to play a 3-3 line because search and mobility were my priorities in building out the rest of the deck, and really 2 Electric plus your turn attachment is usually enough to get your attackers rolling. Tapu Koko V provides some nice big damage and mobility thanks to its free retreat. Basically, when you don't want to use Rayquaza, this is your go-to attacker. And in most cases, it'll actually outdamage Rayquaza, or it could be used as a finishing blow to follow up a Dragon Burst. Zeraora GX is basically here for its ability, which grants free retreat to anything that has an electric energy attached. Plasma Fists also provides a nice attack in a pinch, and its GX attack can let us swarm the field with energy if our electric aren't present in sufficient numbers. Tapu Koko Prism Star is here to cheat a bit more energy into play thanks to its Dance of the Ancients ability. It's a great way to power up Rayquaza in a pinch and perhaps get that extra energy that you need to take a big KO. On to the trainers, we've got a pretty thin draw supporter line of Cynthia and Sycamore. You really don't need or want to play much else in a very aggressive deck like this. And, basically, Cynthia is here for when you don't want to discard cards like your Electric, for example, or your Fire Energies. And Sycamore is there to rip you a big new hand and potentially dump Electric Energies for Electric to accelerate. We've got a couple of Guzma to help shuffle the board around and take KOs. And it's particularly preferable over Lysander here because Electric can only accelerate to the bench, and a spent Rayquaza in the active ain't doing much anyways. We're also running 4 VS Seeker to make up for the lack of our physical supporters, and this is great because it means that we have better access to draw or gusting when we need it. Battle Compressor is here to dump supporters and energy for use with VS Seeker and Electric respectively, and at a 2 count, it's also just great for thinning out your deck sometimes when you really need to draw for a particular card. We play a very thick Pokeball package with Nest Ball, Level Ball, and Ultra Ball. In this deck, priority number 1 is benching your full suite of Electric, the same way that a Malamar wants to get a ton of Inkay and then evolve them up quickly. So all of the extra Pokemon search really assists you in getting that sorted out by your first or second turn. Viridian Forest is there to search and dump energy. Primarily, you're going to want to dump Lightning Energy to grab a Fire Energy for Rayquaza, but if you already have that Fire Energy in play, then just dumping a Lightning Energy to grab a Lightning Energy is great for filling the discard pile and thinning your deck a little bit. Ordinary Rod provides a measure of recovery, critically putting your Fire Energies back into the deck, and perhaps recovering an Electric that you were forced to dump from a Sycamore. Now, in terms of our switching cards, we play 2 copies of Floatstone and 2 copies of Switch, which might seem like overkill or dumb, because why not just run more Floatstones? And to be fair, you can make an argument that it's maybe a weird choice, but for me, I just think you can't afford to leave a spent Rayquaza in the active, and these 2 cards just help you keep the aggression going. Also, you usually want the Floatstone on your electrics because as it is, Rayquaza is usually going to go down after using its Dragon Burst, so Switch does kind of have utility here because that Floatstone's not really sticking around as it is. And, you know, in a lot of cases when you can't afford to use Guzma to force the retreat, Switch is just really handy to have in those really tight moments. And of course we play a few fire energies and a healthy count of lightning energies to charge up the Jolly Green Dragon. So in a nutshell, accelerate energy, smash, retreat, accelerate energy, smash, etc. It's a pretty straightforward approach. You're not doing anything fancy here for the most part, except for a bit of switching around. You're just trying to blow up enemy multi-prizers before they can slay Rayquaza with its admittedly measly 170 HP. Now, that said, even with the full complement of eels on board, your damage is usually going to cap out at 180, so that's something to be mindful of as you pick and choose your targets because, newsflash, most Pokemon V are sitting around 200 HP. So it takes a lot of work to take them out, and it means that you're probably not trading very well when they can hit you for like 170 plus damage with ease. But anyway, that's enough prattling on about this deck. Let's jump onto the expanded ladder and see if Rayquaza is still in fact the king. Okay, and that was quite the romp through Rayquaza's domain. I'm usually pretty terrified of Zacian V when I see it during a deck boss laddering session. Half the time it just makes me want to scoop because I know ADP is soon to follow, or Lucario and Melmetal, which arguably sometimes is more demoralizing. But anyway, this actually ended up being a really close match. But hey, you know what? We actually managed to steal the win. Now, I should say that in this particular matchup, some of Rayquaza's weaknesses actually ended up being pretty negligible. I think even if it was a Pokemon V with the associated HP buff that your average Pokemon V has over an EX, I doubt it would have lived a Brave Blade as is. So in that sense, Zacian didn't really gain any advantage over the deck. But obviously my opponent was also playing a radically different build of Zacian than most people are used to, and I kind of wanted to commend them for doing so because it actually allowed for a bit more interesting back and forth. Also, Zacian V just provides an interesting contrast to, what a deck boss back in the black and white era looked like as opposed to the Sword and Shield era. Rayquaza, with its now measly 170 HP, could accelerate energy to itself much in the way that Zacian could, except Rayquaza required you to take some risk in that you had to discard anything that wasn't an energy card when you were using Celestial Roar. Also, Dragon Burst required you to discard all of the basic energy of one type in order to hit those high numbers, whereas Brave Blade has a soft, you can't use this attack again next turn, but I mean, you can switch. And you don't always have access to an engine like Electric, for example, to get your Rayquaza charged up, right? Zacian is very much self-sufficient in most ways, whereas Rayquaza did need a lot of work to get rolling, and even with the crazy damage it was dealing out, it might not necessarily have always gotten the OHKO. But Zacian, oh my god, things have come a long way. And nothing illustrates it more than the two of them going at each other. Now, all of this has me very excited to basically upgrade this list once Evolving Skies and Rayquaza VMAX drop, because the engine has already proven how deadly this kind of thing can be. And, I'm a big sucker for Dragon Pokemon as it is. So, yeah, I'm going to be pre-ordering a couple of booster boxes most likely. And really, with Flaffy acting as the spiritual successor to Electric, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, things are going to get interesting. Although I have to say, Rayquaza being a Rapid Strike Pokemon is a little odd to me. Same thing with the Duraludon VMAX, incidentally. I think in this set, and even to a certain extent in Chilling Reign, there's some really questionable calls as to what is a Rapid Strike and what is a Single Strike Pokemon. They kind of got away from this whole theme of like multiple attacks all at once, or the big one punch. And they're kind of just going, okay, well, it's an extra graphic to kind of slap on there. And for the most part, you can't even really make use of the support in those archetypes. So cool. Although I think Rayquaza can use that new Lightning Scroll tool card that will be coming out. So that is something to keep your eye out for. On a slightly unrelated note, I've been fleshing out my collection of one prize decks and, just more classic meta decks. And I'm thinking that instead of diving into another episode of Deck Boss right away, we might just actually have a look at these classic decks and see how they kind of fare in 2021. I've been cooking up some really fun stuff, and, I think it's probably time that we shake things up a little bit here. No? Anyway, you guys know the drill. If you enjoyed today's show, please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you hadn't already. This one was kind of a doozy to produce, so I really hope you guys are getting a good kick out of it. I still kind of am, as I'm editing this just before midnight this week. So, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully you guys liked it. It was different. I know these cards were a lot older, but at the very least, now you know where all of the Floatstones and VS Seekers came from in the more recent episodes of Deck Boss. I opened these guys a while ago. It was a shame I haven't been able to crank this one out a bit sooner. But yeah, oh my god. Just opening these two decks up has absolutely transformed the way that I can build decks for this show and, for other kinds of episodes that I want to do going forward. So, fantastic milestone one way or another. And with that, I will catch you all next time. And until then, take it easy.